The Hunted Village. What happens when the person loved the most becomes the one hated the most? What happens when envy in the hearts of neighbors turns into a curse that destroys an entire community? This is not just a story, it is a piece of history that happened in the year 2010, in a quiet village near Umuahia, Abia State, Nigeria, a story of love, envy, betrayal, and a haunting that shook an entire land. Her name was Chinaza Okafor, born in 1998, the only child of her mother, Ngozi, a hardworking widow who raised her with nothing but prayers and determination. From childhood, Chinaza carried a light within her. She was kind, intelligent, and beautiful. By the time she was 10, everyone in Umuahia knew her name. Neighbors would say, "If you want your child to be kind, let them spend one day with Chinaza." Children ran to her whenever she walked through the dusty village paths, while elders praised her discipline. She sang in the choir at St. Teresa's Catholic Church, her voice so angelic that even strangers traveling from Arachukwu would pause to listen when she led worship. In school, she always topped her class, and her teachers believed she had a bright future waiting beyond the village. But while admiration filled the air, jealousy began to grow like poison in the hearts of some women. Among them were Adiz, Ifeanyi, and Chinyere, women who had once praised Chinaza but now whispered behind her back. How can a girl with no father, no money, no power, be loved this much? Adiz hissed one evening at the marketplace. She must be using charms, Chinyere added. Soon, rumors began spreading, that Chinaza was too perfect to be natural, that perhaps she had dealings with dark spirits. Her mother, Ngozi, heard the rumors but dismissed them. She would often say, "When the sun shines too bright, some eyes cannot bear it." But envy has a way of planting seeds that grow into deadly thorns. That year's New Yam festival became the turning point. The whole community gathered in the square. Dancers performed, masquerades entertained, and finally, the village elders asked Chinaza to sing. Her voice rose into the night like something from heaven itself. People clapped, children laughed, and elders nodded in deep admiration. Even the chief priest, who rarely praised anyone, whispered, "This girl is a blessing to our land." But not everyone celebrated. From the shadows, Adiz and her companions watched, their faces twisted in bitterness. That night, they swore an oath, "She will not outshine us again. If the village will not stop her, we will."
The year was 2010. The jealousy that had been whispering in the shadows was now roaring in the hearts of Chinaza's enemies. At the home of Adiz, the women gathered under the cover of night. "If we don't stop her now," Adiz spat, "our children will never be remembered. She will be the only name on people's lips." Ifeanyi nodded, "Let us end it before she takes everything from us." They spread more rumors, whispering that Chinaza was a witch, that she used her beauty and voice to steal people's destinies. Before long, the lie had spread across Umuahia like wildfire. Some villagers began to believe it. Others, though they loved her, stayed silent out of fear. The stage was being set for betrayal. It was on a humid evening in July, 2010. Chinaza had just returned from choir practice when a young boy came running to her home. "Sister Chinaza, come quickly. They say there is a child at the square who is sick, and only you can pray for him." With her mother's blessing, she hurried into the night, barefoot, her white choir dress still clinging to her skin. But when she reached the village square, no child was there, only shadows. From the darkness, voices rose. "There she is. The witch who has been deceiving us." Before she could understand, the mob surrounded her. They dragged her to the ground, beating her as she cried out for mercy. Her mother, Ngozi, ran into the square, screaming, "She is innocent. She is my daughter. You are killing light itself." But the mob was deaf. Fueled by envy, they struck her again and again until her voice went silent. Her lifeless body was carried and dumped near the Aba river bank, the very place she used to fetch water for the poor. The villagers returned home that night pretending justice had been served. But something darker had been unleashed.
Ngozi wept by the river until her eyes swelled shut. She begged the elders for justice, but they turned away. One even told her, "It is the gods who demanded her life. Let the matter rest." But how could a mother rest when her only child had been slaughtered by the hands of those she once called neighbors? She buried Chinaza quietly by the river, her tears mixing with the soil. As she laid the last handful of sand, she whispered, "My daughter, let your spirit fight for you, since men have failed you." And the land listened. At first, life in Umuahia seemed to return to normal. The market opened, the church bell rang, and the villagers laughed as though nothing had happened. But then, strange things began. A goat was found hanging from a tree with no rope. A child woke up screaming that Chinaza was sitting at the edge of his bed, humming her church hymn. At midnight, shadows walked across compounds though no one was outside. Fear began to creep into the hearts of those who had once raised their hands against her. The village that once celebrated became a place of whispers and locked doors. The haunting had begun. The first to feel Chinaza's wrath was Adiz, the ringleader of the jealous women. One night, as the moon shone pale over Umuahia, Adiz woke up to the sound of a hymn. It was the same hymn Chinaza used to sing at St. Teresa's church, the same soft, angelic voice. She froze. Her lantern flickered, and when she turned toward the door, there stood Chinaza, dripping wet as though fresh from the Aba river, her white choir dress stained with blood. "Adiz, why did you betray me?" the voice echoed. By morning, Adiz was found dead in her bed, her eyes wide open, her lips still moving as if trying to sing. Fear spread quickly. At Umuahia market, traders swore they saw Chinaza walking past, though her grave lay by the river. A calabash of palm oil shattered on its own, staining the ground red. One old man muttered, "The dead do not rest when they are killed unjustly." At night, villagers heard footsteps on rooftops, and the sound of her laughter floating through the air. No one dared go outside once the sun fell. Ifyananya, who once accused her of witchcraft, was found drowned in shallow water that barely reached her ankles. Chinyere, who had struck Chinaza with a stone on the night of her death, burned in a fire that consumed only her hut, leaving the rest of the village untouched. One by one, those who had raised their hands against Chinaza were being claimed. The village understood, the girl they killed was not resting. On a Sunday morning, during Mass at St. Teresa's church, the entire congregation froze when a boy named Kalechi fell to the ground. When he rose, his voice was not his own. It was Chinaza's. "You killed me. You spilled innocent blood. Until you confess, this land will know no peace." Gasps filled the church. Some fainted. Others wept. The guilty ones trembled, their secrets now exposed before the whole community. Father Benedict, the parish priest, knew he had to act. He gathered his Bible, holy water, and a crucifix, and went to Chinaza's gravesite by the Aba river. "Child of light," he prayed, "may your soul find peace in Christ." But as he read the gospel aloud, a wind rose from the river, tearing pages from his Bible. The crucifix fell from his hand, and his candle snuffed out. Then came her voice, chilling and sorrowful. "Father, I do not seek peace. I seek justice." The priest fled in terror, realizing her spirit could not be silenced by prayer alone. Soon, the entire village felt her anger. The rain stopped. The farmlands dried, leaving cassava and yam shriveled in the soil. Children fell ill with fevers that no medicine could cure. Pregnant women miscarried. Even animals refused to give birth. The elders finally admitted what they had hidden, that Chinaza's death was no act of the gods, it was murder. And now the land itself was cursed.
Ngozi, who had lost everything, returned to the Aba River one night. Kneeling by her daughter's grave, she wept until her body shook. "Chinaza, my child, if you can hear me, please, let go of your pain. I cannot bear the weight of your suffering and mine together." For the first time, Chinaza's spirit appeared not with rage, but with sorrow. Her voice broke like a whispering wind. "Mother. I want to rest, but truth must be spoken. Justice must come. Only then will I find peace." Ngozi's tears soaked the earth, and the river rippled as though agreeing with her grief.
11. Umuahia was on the brink of collapse. Crops failed, sickness spread, and no night passed without whispers of Chinaza's ghost. The elders could no longer hide the truth. They called the villagers to the square and, under heavy rain, forced the guilty ones to speak. One by one, trembling voices confessed. "We lied. We envied her. We killed Chinaza." Their shame hung in the air like smoke, poisoning everyone who had stayed silent when they should have spoken. Ngozi stood in the crowd, her eyes burning with grief and strength. At last, the truth was out, but justice was not yet complete. That very night, as thunder roared and lightning split the sky, Chinaza's ghost appeared in full form at the market square. Her white dress glowed, her hair fell in dark waves, her face both beautiful and terrifying. She walked slowly, her bare feet leaving wet footprints on dry earth. She raised her hand and pointed at the remaining guilty ones. "You took my life, tonight, I take back what was stolen." Before the crowd, lightning struck, and those who had orchestrated her death fell lifeless, their bodies twisted in the mud. The rest of the village fell to their knees, crying out for mercy. The elders, broken and afraid, sought the help of both the traditional priests and Father Benedict. For the first time in decades, the church and the shrine stood side by side. At the Aba River, they performed cleansing rites. Songs were sung, drums were beaten, and prayers rose like smoke into the sky. As the last offering of white doves was released, Chinaza appeared one final time. Her face softened. She smiled at her mother, and her voice, no longer angry, whispered, "Mother, it is done." Then she faded into the mist, leaving behind only the sound of rushing water. After her vengeance, peace slowly returned to Umuahia. The rains came back. The land grew fertile once more. Children's laughter returned to the village paths. The people, now humbled, rebuilt their homes and their hearts. They promised never again to let envy blind them to the truth. And though fear of her ghost lingered, there was also respect for the girl who had become a legend. By 2012, the village built a school by the riverbank where her body had been buried. They named it Chinaza Okafor Memorial School. On its walls was carved a simple lesson. Envy destroys, truth heals. Ngozi, though still grieving, found comfort knowing her daughter's name would live on, not as a victim, but as a voice that reshaped an entire village. And so, Chinaza's story became more than a haunting. It became a warning, a memory, and a legacy. Even now, some say when the wind blows through Umuahia at night, you can hear a faint song rising from the Aba River, the voice of the girl who was loved, betrayed, and finally, avenged.